on YouTube.
It's like great methods of being witnessed.
Yes.
You're recording.
Yeah, and it's got captions too, which is exciting.
Nice.
Well, hopefully a few people will straggle in. We'll have a nice sized crowd. My name is Enid. I'm the branch manager here at Milwaukee Public Library East Branch. I want to welcome everyone here. We are thrilled to be in partnership with Boswell and Nghi Vo here with the book launch. We're thrilled. There are some flyers on that counter if you want to help yourself to anything, because we definitely have some amazing programs that we want to let you know about, and hopefully you'll join us. I also brought my little sign like, hey, don't forget if your library card is expired, feel free the next time you come to renew. If you don't have a library card in Milwaukee County, hey, we'd love to sign you up for one. So without further ado, and of course we want you to buy a book, which are all beautifully signed by the author. Besides that, I want to introduce my colleague Beth, who's going to be running this program. I wrote down some notes about Beth, so I wouldn't forget. Beth has been with Milwaukee Public Library for a fast-paced 10 years and has done some amazing programming here at East Branch, including an after-hours event in partnership with Milwaukee Film, and some other fun events like silent reading parties and book buffets, little sampling books and books recommendations. That also submits reviews for Library Journal, which for the librarian is like a pinnacle of success. That's at the pinnacle. And again, I want to thank you guys for coming out on this beautiful night. Thank Boswell for the participation and the opportunity, and thank the author. And everyone's very excited about Siren Queen. Thank you. So thank you for being here. And Beth?
Yeah, I'll take over. Thanks so much, Enid.
Sure.
Best manager ever. Okay. So and I'm all right, I just want to welcome again everyone to the East Branch Library, our new building, which, you know, I think it's 6 years old now, but we were closed for quite a chunk of that with the pandemic. And this is our very, very first author program and library program for 2 years. So thanks for being here. It's really special that we can host you tonight. I'm just so delighted that I get to talk to our special guest this evening, Nghi Vo. We had the pleasure of hosting you virtually during our shutdown.
Yeah,
just a program. Yep, for Children of the Beautiful. So if you do want to watch that, that's on our YouTube channel. And then let me introduce you. So Nghi Vo is the author of the novel Siren Queen and Children of the Beautiful, as well as the acclaimed novellas When Tiger Came Down the Mountain and Emperor's in Fortune. Both were award-winning finalists and the winner of the Crawford Award and the Hugo Award. You were born in Illinois and now live on the shores of Lake Michigan, and you believe the ritualistic, the power of stories, and the right to change your mind.
I've made so many people read that. It's been great.
I love it. It's a great Bible. So if you weren't having a mascot today, what color was your book? Special one?
Okay, I have one lipstick and it's Revlon's, I think, Black Cherry. And so this book is, it's all about the glamour and magic of Hollywood. And my agent, who is fantastic, she's Diana Fox, and she's like, what lipstick do you really see the main character wearing here? I'm like, it's whichever one did what I said it did in the book, Diana. And she got so bad about it. She tried to send me a care package of lipstick, and it got stolen out of the mail. And she's like, you don't understand. You'd be so upset if you knew how good the lipstick I was sending you was. I'm just mad my mail got stolen, Diana. That's mad enough. So right now, basically what I'm wearing underneath this is, I think I'm actually wearing Vaseline chapstick. So that's what we got.
I put on some atomic cherry, which is a favorite of mine.
Oh, that's a really bright red.
Yeah.
It's a blue red, right?
Yeah. And then
That's
they made me film a TikTok segment earlier today.
Like the children do.
Yeah. Except I don't think we don't TikTok yet. We can Instagram video. Here's the library. So I got to take my mask off for a little bit. So I wear that in my review. And all of the books I read, which I was lucky to get to read early. So I have my newspaper back here. But You know that here in Milwaukee, you kind of tell us about what brought you here.
Kind of an unwise relationship, how about that?
Yeah.
No, it was actually a great relationship right until the time it wasn't. I came up here following my girlfriend at the time, who came up to go to school here, and I came from Illinois, actually. So basically, it was just going from the really flat soy fields to the lake. So that was a very good choice, and I stayed, and I like staying, and I hope I get to stay.
And you're actually the patron here.
Yes, I am. Basically, this is as nice as I ever look. So most of the time when I'm actually working here, I'm usually settled by the window over like on that bank over there. And I basically look like a small pile of like rags and despair that's quietly muttering to myself. So this is fantastic. Everyone how cute I can look. And I'm like, this is where it tops out. Every now and then I just imagine you guys like, is she alive? Like just touch her sometimes. It's worse when it's not the typing though. Sometimes it's just like my head, like my face is on the keyboard and it's marking up my face. And, you know, it's okay if you need to like poke me to get me to leave.
Wait, we have our text.
You okay? How's it going?
And you actually,
Really familiar.
I think you told me you wrote one of your novels here in large part.
Empress of Salt and Fortune was mostly sort of like, I remember doing a lot of tooth grinding and a lot of that shouldn't be when I was sitting at the window bank, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I definitely know you guys for that one.
I like to think it helps inspire everyone else.
Well, you know, it's all about archives and it's about the transmittance of knowledge and memory, and that's what libraries are for. I basically run my whole career on hoping that librarians would think I was cool, and I don't think it's working, but
It's,
I hope so.
I was so excited when I was asked to interview you again, so that's awesome. So Sarah Queen is your latest novel. Your first novel was really beautiful, but before that you were doing your novellas. We're gonna do you that format specifically. You also write short stories. So.
Because then I'm done. Literally, the reason why I wrote The Empress of Salt and Fortune is because I looked at Tor.com's call for submissions for novellas. First, they're unagented, which is, I think, fantastic of them. It's publishing is hard enough to get into without needing an agent. And second, I looked at it and I'm like, the minimum is 20,000 words. I can definitely write 20,000 words. And it turns out I couldn't write much more than that because that's exactly how long The Empress of Salt and Fortune is, I think. To the point that when it actually went to press, got to be bound and everything, Roshi Chen, who is my editor of Tor.com, says, is there like anything you can add to this? Like, are there like maybe just another couple pages? Because this is barely long enough to be put into a book. I'm like, oh, sorry. So I'm mostly drawn to the length because I hate work and I'm very lazy. And the sooner I can get out, the sooner I can go have some, have a press or something.
That's one of my favorites.
We should.
Love that. And then let's see. I just love the novella so much. They're so tightly. I like a good tight story, and I like writing fantasy that is really plotted. And how do you do that world building within that structure, since it is such a short way? Is that a struggle?
It's really more like refusing to be accountable for my actions. Okay, so there's this really fun trick that you can do with work, right? You dropped it like it's nothing. It doesn't matter if you spent like 2 or 3 weeks trying to work out the politics of a certain situation. All you really have to say is, oh yeah, that one time that kingdom made a bull into the king, and you just drop it and you just move on like it's nothing. And that's really fun to do. You can see me do it a lot actually, if you've ever read those novellas. And the problem, the obverse and the dark side of this is the fact that I have kept no notes on anything that I've dropped like that. And I need to make a wiki like about 2 years ago to have kept track of that. And I'm like, this is gonna come and bite me in the ass any day now. So I'm just kind of waiting for that switch to drop.
I actually know people that they make series Bibles for people.
That is so smart.
And I'm like, well, you have your
I got this 2 years ago.
Yeah. I love that you just immerse everyone into the world and you're not explaining overly everything that's going on, because it feels like I'm living in that space, and it's just so delightful, and I love so much, and there's two in that world, and I read that you can, I read the first one, but I've heard that you can jump in.
Anytime, they're specifically made to be standalone. I like to think there are some rewards if you read the whole thing, because you get to see these characters progress, and you can kind of see, you know, Chi when they're in their timeline, from when they're like kind of an ambitious kid to being a much lazier adult to being someone whose priorities shift. And basically, I had no idea that like, the Empress of Song Fortune was going to spawn a series until Roshi said, "Hey, do you want to write more?" And I'm like, "Are you going to pay me?" Yes, I would. So I am going to keep going on that as long as I can let me, because I've completely fallen in love with the world, protagonist with the really somewhat bitchy little bird spirit, you know, it's all good.
And then you are having another development.
Yes.
Into the Riverlands, when is that?
That is coming out in October, and it is basically, it's more Chi. This is jumping back into Chi's past, so we've got Almost Brilliant again, who was absent from when Tiger came down the mountain. And it's basically what comes of watching The Untamed off of Netflix like 2 or 3 times, and just sort of like, I need to have emotions about something. So I'm gonna have emotions about this magical martial arts wuxia story, and I'm gonna be okay. And yeah, I guess maybe if there's a message for that, it's like, it's gonna be okay. It's probably gonna be okay. And that's coming out.
I just got that part.
Oh yeah, I hope you like it.
Digitally, so.
Did you get it with Alyssa Winnen's cover?
I didn't open it yet, because I just like your publicist just emailed it today. I was like, "Please don't let me."
Her cover, I love. That's my favorite cover of all she's done. It's fantastic.
I think I did see it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I love all of the animals and the creatures in there. Do you have a favorite in that series that you just had, like the mastodon or
the mammoths are so much fun. You know, the mammoths are so much fun because I'm like, okay, so we didn't lose mammoths. In this world, we have mammoths, and then we domesticated them. And then I started looking up what goes into, you know, animal domestication and how long it takes, and you know how it seems to go faster for like anything that's like a herd animal or a pack animal. So a little faster there. And then I realized, wait, they start to vocalize more. And this is a weird one, but they start to get more diverse markings. Like suddenly we have like dogs with masks and white paws. I'm like, that means I get to have a mammoth with white socks. And that was like the best. And of course the tigers, because basically when it comes to when the tiger came down the mountain, I realized that if I was like about 800 pounds of apex predator, I could say whatever I was thinking. And that's where the tigers come from. So I love them very much.
Yes.
That's like a fantasy, right? I'm like, it's like I'm a permanent, I win horn.
And then in the developments too, everything has kind of more than one meaning, right? So the one I was going to, I read an interview of yours, and it's a cup, right? So a cup can hold, as you said, poison, or it can hold water. And you kind of do that throughout the series, I feel. Is that, can you explain that to everyone? Like, why you focus on that?
I will say that in the future, I cannot actually be held accountable for the things I said in other interviews. That was a long time ago. I don't care if it's like a week, it's a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, that's the way life is. It's a person who is abusive can also be your mother. They can also be your nightmare. They can be the most important person in the world to you, and they can be someone you never want to see again. And that is, I mean, that's the crux of where a lot of stories begin and end, is how we choose to see the world, or how we are forced to see the world. And if you read any of my novellas, I'm not trying to say there's no such thing as an objective truth, because if someone punches me in the face, they have still punched me in the face no matter why they did it. But on the other hand, that's where the story starts, and it can't be where the story ends.
Let's see. Let's switch over to Chosen the Beautiful. For those who might not have read it yet, you tell us who the main character is and why you chose.
Okay, so The Chosen the Beautiful is it is magical 1920s Great Gatsby fanfic. And we start off with Jordan Baker, who I was absolutely the most interested in when they made me read it at the age of 14, 15 or so. And she happens to be magical, Vietnamese American, an adoptee, And she's so mean, and she has so much fun to write. And and basically we just go through the events of the Great Gatsby. And it's very much a secret history, and it's very much the things that aren't said, and it's also me getting to mess around with the queer scene in 1920s New York. And then I just put a lot of magic on top, which is extra fun.
It was just so beautifully written. I very much when I got into love Gatsby when I was in honors English.
No, I loved it too.
I know,
absolutely loved it
It
too.
was easy to read
And it's short.
it's short and like I'm like, I get the metaphor.
It's amazing when you're a teenager. You don't ever get the metaphor as a teenager.
And I had a teacher who was very animate about all of these things. She just made me love what we were reading. So I very much got that sense. You were similar in that way when I was reading your book. So you just really enjoy yourself and immerse yourself in this world and play with it. And I love how it played with the queer scene because instead of pretending it wasn't there or not ignoring that, come on.
Right. And the emotions are so big in the original novel. It's like everyone feels so much. And that was definitely me at 15. I'm like, yes, I'm feeling everything. I hate that.
And like having Jordan as, we say the unlikable heroine, I love.
It's like, how dare you?
I love and adore them. They're difficult. They're amazing. So it just was so much fun to read. And I have to ask, is Siren Queen set in the same universe?
Oh yeah, probably. I'm sorry. It's you don't actually get much of any when there's the world is weird and the world is big, and at some point during if I ever get to do the sequel novellas that I would really like to do for this whole series, Jordan actually definitely sits down and watches a Lovely Wedding movie. But it's more like but no one knows each other because it's like a world too. But no, it's definitely the same. It's definitely the same universe.
I was like, I can see Jordan watching these films, so that's so great. Before we jump into Siren Queen, let's talk about how the pandemic has affected. Your first book came out and the world shut down. Okay, all right.
So they tell you a lot of stories about your first book event, what to expect. And then basically about a week before The Empress of Salt and Fortune came out, my very first traditionally published book, they're like, hey, guess what? The country's shutting down. I'm like, cool, that's fine. That's a great thing to have happen. So all of my events, I did them virtually. I got very used to Zooms and Caster, all those fun things. My agent said, go buy a ring light, you need a ring light. And I'm like, I didn't think this was going to be a part of my publishing journey, but okay. So a lot of it was just being conversant with a lot of technology, but I think that one of the nice things was, it put me in email contacts with people like you and, everyone at Boswell, it's Boswell. Thank you. Oh my God. Yes, everyone at Boswell, and I am a writer, and the nice thing about getting connections with everyone through text is that it feels more immediate. It feels much more effective to me. I think we were saying earlier, this career feels kind of mean because I spent 20 years in a tiny box writing on another tiny box, and now suddenly I'm expected to come out and be witnessed by people, and that just seems mean and unfair and awful. I'm kind of mad everyone knows what I look like right now.
I totally understand how that feels because I feel like it was, for me, as I had to suddenly launch my job in YouTube.
Right, you're
bookmark
famous.
Yeah, and I'm like, bookmark, and that's scary to me. And I feel like having authors like you who are so willing to jump into this new world, right? It's new. And here we are, and I feel like it's been I'm happy that was the outcome for something that's been really hard for everyone. And
I think we're mostly swimming rather than sinking, so I think we feel good about that, right? I want to learn to doggy paddle, but this is what I have, and no one's dead yet.
And it's been so great to connect with people like you who are local, and now we can be in person. And then I'm sure, where's the farthest away place that you would Zoom? Do you remember?
Let's see. I've definitely done a Zoom, I think, for an Australian site, which was really interesting. Mostly it's just me trying to manage time zones because I feel like everyone who is in publishing is either on the West Coast or on the East Coast. So there's this sad little post-it next to my computer which says something like, to get Eastern time, subtract 1 hour, to get Pacific Standard, add 2, stop messing this up. Why is this so hard? And I really have to look at it more than is flattering.
Take a picture of that and send it to me. It's so hard. And
It's
then
so hard.
I had one day where my laptop that I used didn't update the time. So I was an hour behind and I was just like, yeah, it's fine. Because I did.
That's exactly how that feels. It's so disorienting. And I feel like one thing I need to stop doing is I need to stop joking with people on the East Coast that I need to go out and hug a pig or something like that, because I think they're beginning to leave me. I'm like, I'm sorry, my fountain is a raccoon that I found in the trash, and what do you want from me?
What do you think? Yeah.
I will tell you about the weirdest point of cultural misunderstanding I ever had, or just misapprehension, I guess, because my agent and my editor were all on a call, and they were talking about, oh yeah, they lost their offices at the Flatiron building, and they moved to this other place uptown, and well, they don't have any more good restaurants, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here? I'm going to go get my Arby's.
Words.
It's like, what is your life even like?
So much of that in there. It's just been kind of wild.
It's been nuts.
How is that kind of translated to with your work? Like what was like a normal writing day look like for you?
I mean, sitting right over there by the windows usually. These days it's a little bit more like, I collapse from despair around about 4 a.m. and there's the screaming nightmares, of course. And I usually wake up around about 11. And there's exercise, there's holding my cat and making sure that he knows he's still loved, because in the night he has forgotten. And then there's checking the emails. There's so many emails now. Like, have you noticed that's a circular review thing? It's like all the emails, and I'm trying to answer them, and I'm trying to make sure that everyone gets what they need. And then there's the writing, which is the easy part. So I'm gonna do that. It's just like, okay, back when I used to be a ghostwriter, I could turn out between 6,000 and 8,000 words a day pretty easily. These days I'm doing closer to 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 4K, which is, it's a good work day for me. And then I get to stop and I get to write another 10,000 words of fanfic or something, right? And then there's cooking, and then there's staring at my cat to make sure he continues to remember that he's loved, and whatever events. And yeah, that's my work day too. You just have to imagine that there's more yelling at random people outside on my street if they're fighting or something. It's like, I can see you. I've totally gone antsy with that. It's been great.
So that's great that you've been doing the I know some of my times you write we're really missing the outside of a coffee shop or around above. What about you? I'm really into YouTube aesthetics where I put my headphones in and it's thunder and lightning and pouring rain and crackling fire.
Oh, that's nice.
And I
That's
just
great.
put it in my ears. And
Yeah, there's that Netflix channel for like a fire going, and that's kind of romantic. Yeah.
Exactly that. So that's what I use to tune out, because I do 2 days a week now at home.
Oh, cool.
Here, and at home, everybody's talking all the time.
No, every now and then we get those storms coming in off the lake, and I'm like, yes, it's peak aesthetic. So I turn off the lights and I light some candles and I put on a robe and pretend I'm a fading opera singer whose best years are behind her, and that sounds fun.
Yeah, did you buy a murder robe for?
I need a murder robe. I still need a murder robe. Sometimes it's because I sew, so I just grab a nice piece of fabric and just wrap it around myself and stare at the sleeting rain and dream about my love who is lost at sea.
Yep, that sounds perfect. Very up you.
Yeah, let's we forget the fact that I'm a little Midwestern dumpling who probably fell face first in a pile of noodles 10 hours ago.
Do you have a favorite drink that you drink while you're writing, or just water?
Just water, unfortunately. So The Chosen Beautiful came out, and one part of the book kit is actually a bunch of drinks that were inspired by the book, and they were developed from period cocktails, which is I think just honestly the way we learned to make bathtub gin acceptable to drink. But a lot of that was Diana, my agent's doing, because I'm real bad at alcohol. I'm hilariously bad at it. The last thing I really remember drinking was it was a liquid Jolly Rancher, I think.
Yeah.
was real bad. So, so she was the one who actually put together all the recipes for us. And mostly I just have to stick with water because I'm too healthy to handle like Kool-Aid these days. Oh, sure. Oh, that's hard. Just mainly to feel normal.
I like to sleep when I'm right, so we are all here to celebrate signing, right? I'm so excited to talk about this. We're not gonna try to spoil it for you because I haven't seen anyone read it yet. Okay, so we won't spoil anything, but we'll talk about it. So, give us your elevator pitch for this book, if you didn't know anything about it.
Chinese American actress makes it big in fairyland Hollywood in the 1930s. I've gotten kind of good at that one. I feel pretty proud of just getting to spit all that out. But it's Lily Wei. She grows up in Los Angeles. She wants to be a movie star, and there is so much magic, and there's so much fairyland magic because I grew up on Murder Ballads, Tamlin, all that fun stuff. And it's like, what is Hollywood except a whole series of that bargain stacked against you? And that's where it came from. I literally know where it came from because there's this chat log in my records, and apparently out of like nowhere, I just told my friend Grace, to whom the book is dedicated. It's like, hey, you notice that basically Hollywood is like fairyland. Like there's the promises of immortality, there's beauty, there's the fact that they can take your face and give you a new one. There's changelings, and I just like went on about that for like hours. And she's like, this is a thing that's happening to me now. We're talking about like eating dinner, but this is fun. This Grace is great. And around about 2 hours after that, I realized someone's watching this. Someone is seeing this and experiencing this, and that was Lily. And she just basically walked into my head. I'm like, so it's nice to see you, and kind of went from there. That was as easy as it has ever come, and I don't expect it to be that easy again.
I love it. Your friend was such an important part.
Oh yeah, she's great. She's the coolest.
So when you were researching this setting, did you have any sources you were turning to for inspiration? Anything that you were using specifically?
Yeah, actually, the best resource for the ideas of what Hollywood was like back in the 1920s and the 1930s was absolutely the biographies and the autobiographies of the actors of the day. The two that stand out are the biographies for Marlene Dietrich and for Greta Garbo, who is, basically one of my big crushes, and she definitely walks in because I'm like, yeah, there's literally a character named Greta who I love, and she's basically, if you took Greta Garbo and made her like a lot more feral and capable of bending a man's spine into a wedding ring, that's Greta. That's her, Isn't she great? She is so cute and mean.
Obviously there's a lot of history too that is wrapped into the story, despite it being also very magical and very inspired. And did you read it or look at any other sources that really you needed to do your work for this book?
One thing that I always wish I could incorporate more into was the idea that this is there's a San Francisco sort of jaunt at close to the end of the book where we actually hit the Forbidden Palace, which was a entertainment venue owned by Chinese American proprietors in the time period, and it was basically full of Asian American entertainment acts, like singers, jugglers, dancers. A very famous woman who danced mostly nude with a large bubble in front of her, which was very popular and kind of got on the map. That was definitely one of them. Biographies also of Ramon Navarro, and also like a lot about celebrity actually, because one of the sources that kind of went into writing the Siren Queen that I didn't expect was going to be as helpful was reading about Harry Houdini. They did there was an exhibit for him from the museum over there a while back that I went to. I had no idea he was first, a local Milwaukee person. And the idea that he was kind of one of America's first celebrities, actually went out and advertised himself, sent advanced runners to the places where he was going to perform. And one of the things that really got to me is that celebrity is such a 20th century invention. No one has ever been this famous before in all the world, in all of history. And that is weird, and we were not ready for that.
Not at all.
Not even a little bit. Like, I can barely keep up with TikTok, and it's like, what?
It's,
Yeah.
it's a whole other world. My 10-year-old will tell you all about it. The line that really struck home for me that I kept coming back to in spoilery was the main character has this kind of slogan, no maids, no funny talking, no fleeting flowers. How does that kind of define her as like a star, a singer, and as her character?
It is a difficult and kind of messed up line if you think about it, because one of the places that the main character comes from is from Anime, who, as a matter of fact, did play a fair amount of maids fainting flowers with the funny accent. And it says something when you're willing to distance yourself from the people who've come before you. And it is difficult and it is a little painful. Like one of the things I was very pleased to get to write, and which was, came around in edit, was I get to let the main character have a conversation with a character who's basically an ex-B of Patty McDaniels, who played Mammy in Gone with the Wind. And that character says, okay, yeah, I want to see the girl who thinks she's too good to be me. And that's something that the main character does have to face. It's, I want more, but what does it say about the people who theoretically are moving behind me? And it is a very difficult line, and it was very much Lily's line. That was one that I just was basically taking dictation on. And it also sort of told me who she was and what she was willing to give up and what she really wanted. So, I mean, not that she knows it at that point. At that point, she's just like, I would like to not be in this situation, please.
And within the story itself, these Hollywood studio heads are actual monsters. Like, what gave you that idea? And it felt really pertinent even to today. So,
I mean, one of the cool things that I get asked lots of questions about monsters, both for this book and for The Chosen Beautiful. And I feel like every time I need to say something new or interesting. And so today what I've got is a monster is something with power that doesn't love you, that does not care about you or who you or what you are. And it's like the moment you give someone power, you get to see who they are. And when you turn up some dirt and you find a monster rather than, just a soil or a very sweet little earthworm, it can be very alarming, and it can be also kind of a coming to truth moment as well. Like, what are we really looking at here? And on just a purely narrative level, monsters are fun to write. We were talking about the tigers, I mean, it's up for grabs whether or not a tiger is a monster, but if it eats like your whole family, you have a feeling about that, right? From a certain point of view. But yeah, no, that's why it's power. It is the unlimited access to it, and the brutal willingness to use it. How about that?
Very much strikes home.
Yeah, right.
And then, I mean, even as I was reading, it's set in this historical period, but it felt timeless to me. Like, it felt almost sadly like this could be
Horrifying irrelevant.
Yes,
Yeah.
very horrifying and relevant. How does that feel while writing? Is it intentional or more like a, oh man?
I am not okay. So I just managed to turn 40 a couple months ago, and so I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and that is a very specific time to grow up, especially when you're saturating in a lot of queer trauma narratives. And maybe there's a part of me that doesn't quite buy a lot of the more hopeful stuff. There's always going to be that sort of dark edge to it, and there's always going to be sort of that dark edge that ends up in my writing and the reality that I've lived in. And the fun part about it is, this is pure Stephen King we were talking about earlier. It's what's a scream but a laugh turned upside down, and it goes the other way too. There's a lot of weird light the further down you get. Like, I've been reading so much stuff about like Mariana's Trench and bioluminescent fish that live down there and why they need light or why light attracts them. And I mean, if there's any kind of light that I believe in, it's definitely bioluminescent lights in the Challenger Deep. So
just yeah. I gotta process that for a moment. Yeah. And then, I mean, I just really appreciate the characters encounter these difficult and racist and xenophobic instances that I always really need to be such care of them and the reader, despite
I'm really glad to hear that.
what they are going through. Like, I don't feel like you're using any of these things for shock value. You're just, it's the truth, this is what happens, but you're always very careful.
I
with your
can't
character.
shock anyone with racism. I'm gonna shock you
No,
with
it's-
something like opening the mouth and having way more teeth than it should. That's how you do it.
Exactly. Exactly, and it's so balanced, and I always feel like we're gonna encounter these things, but you're gonna take everyone through, and it'll be good. But how do you protect yourself as a writer when you're writing some of these scenes?
So I used to carry around this big railroad spike. No, that was back when I was living in Illinois and was like working a lot of third shift jobs. Protecting myself, that is not something I actually think about very much because I get to live with my brain. And I definitely have one of those brains that occasionally does decide, hey, you know what'd be really fun? Let's just hurt ourselves. Let's just have like a good time with that, right? I'm like, really? I just wanted to bake something today. And it's like, no, we're just gonna cycle through terrible things. I'm like, okay. And the best part about getting to 40 is realizing that that's temporary. That's one of the biggest tools I've got going, which is like, okay, I feel like this. But maybe after some toast in about 4 hours, I won't. And believing in like the power of toast 4 hours from now. And I don't have to believe in next year. I don't have to believe in 10 years or when I won an award or it's like just it'll be better in 4 hours. And you just have to hang on to that.
Very good. Let's see. So you referenced some biographies and people that you researched. Was there any films that you watched or
man.
kind of gravitated to for preparation for this?
Let's see. Yeah, I watched some silent films because that's kind of where Lily is coming from. She's in the talkies, but a lot of the people she respects and cares about made their start in the silent films. And the silent films are so freaking foreign to me. Like, it's a totally different medium of storytelling with different expectations. Like, we're existing in a time at that point when they didn't actually have credits for actors at the end, which was super interesting because they're like, no one cares about the actors, no one cares what their names are. And then they're coming forward and they're like, okay, now we have celebrities, and now we have part of I get to mention this in Siren Queen. Part of it is they get to be in a situation where they can just make up backgrounds for these actors. Like, this beautiful girl playing a princess. Well, she's really, she's adopted nobility from Hungary. And they just change it for the next movie. And that was just a normal thing they did. I'm like, that's so bizarre from this current setting. But let's see, in terms of movies that I watched for this, Queen Christina with Greta Garbo, Morocco with Marlene Dietrich. I watched a lot of clips of Anne May Wong because she didn't get many starring roles, unfortunately. She was most often a side character in a lot of things that she was in. And honestly, some of them are a little bit hard to watch. So, I was just going off what I know about the film history, people in history classes I took in college many years ago, and just went from there.
Were you a big movie goer in the past, or?
No, I was really the kid who like focused on one movie and then watched it until it was like torn to bits, Like it's like cool. This is just completely useless now. But there's this I have all these memories of like the Dollar Theater near where I used to live, and it was like, and the best part was it was air conditioned in the summer, so you could just walk in, and it was really very much like walking into another world. It was. The temperature drops, the lights go down, and there are these people, right? But they're not people, they're heroes, or they're villains, they're icons, they're saints, they're painted 10 feet high on the screen, and that's a transportive experience. And it's supposed to hit you right here the way that good media should. And that always stuck with me because I can't do that with a book.
No, not exactly.
Really, no.
Yeah. I only recently went back to the theater and watched a film.
Oh yeah, what did you do?
What was it? It was Dune. I had to go see Dune in the theater.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry, I had to see Oscar. I'm really big. Can't help it. And I forgot that it's such a muscle that I forgot how to watch a movie, just sit and like watch a movie. Because at home I'm like,
It's like I need another 2 or 3 small screens around me.
Yeah, like I have other people in your
Right.
life.
And you're alone in the dark.
Yeah, and like I can focus, my children are talking at me during the whole movie. I did miss my subtitles very much.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I'm a confirmed subtitle user now, and I can't handle it. It was just so weird, and I love this, and it brought me back. Yesterday we got to interview Christopher Pollard from Walking Films.
Oh,
Super cool. We were doing a movie memory, so Because he just felt very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes. Oscar Isaacs totally looks like he could be like a 1930s heartthrob though.
I know.
Like he's got the hair and the features.
Put him in a period piece.
He'd be so good.
He's so good. That movie was ridiculous and I liked it. But back to your story.
Oh,
it's written in a memoir style. What drew you to that narrative device for this? I know how it made me feel, but I don't want to spoil anything. So
this isn't a spoiler. It's because I think you get it from the fact that it is told in a memoir setting. I wanted to let you all know that Lulu was going to be okay. Like I needed to know that she was going to be okay because I'm like, you are doing some really stupid things as the story goes along. Are you sure? And, yeah. It's like, and you realize that for some characters, on one hand, yeah, I can write whatever I want, but it's not going to feel right. It's not going to feel true. And there are some characters where at a certain point, they're going to do that thing. Like you don't want them to, and they don't want to, but if they're the character you think they are, they're going to do it. So it's like, I was giving this talk a while back about the process of writing and how, you know, the first like 20% is amazing because you're recreating the world. You are a god. There's nothing that can stop you. You got this. And then you get the 20% mark and you're like, cool, this was a life choice I made. Sure fucked that up. And after that, and this is not a negative way, it's just closing doors as you walk down the path towards the end. The story can only go one way if you're being honest with yourself. And as those doors close, it's actually a kind of claustrophobic, slightly terrifying moment because you're like, okay, let's hope I built right at the beginning because if we didn't build right at the beginning, this is not going to work. And that's part of it. It felt increasingly riskier the longer I was writing this Iron Queen, the longer I was writing Lily's story and all the risks as they add up. And towards the end, I'm like, okay, like I think I did like the last 5,000 words in like one night or something like that. And that worked. And it worked, and I'm really glad it worked. I'm really glad it's a book and not like this sad file on my computer. But I wanted from being to let you know that Lily was going to be okay. And I don't think that cost me much in the way of narrative tension, actually. Or
No.
it didn't.
I didn't think so. And like,
Good.
I was like, oh, okay, so I can sit in this discomfort and be worried for her, but I know in the end,
It's going to be okay.
it'll wrap up. She'll be there.
Yes.
I need to see how we get her there.
Right.
Because I'm a huge romance reader.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my preferred genre. So like this as a romance reader felt very like,
Oh,
like a
that's
very good like
fantastic.
crossover. Like it's not a romance, but I like the things that I find comfort.
No, I just think that's the coolest thing about like good romance is the idea that you have like I mean, I believe the definition of romance as genre is the happily ever after and happily death.
Yes.
And good writers can just do this really cool thing where they're like, and you're still scared. That's in my head, that's like the definition of a good romance. It's like you can, I know this is going to end okay. I know we're going to get the happy ending, but I'm still scared, and it's still a great payoff.
And you're still like,
right. You still got that response, right?
exactly. And like the best writers play with those genre standards and keep you on a marvelous adventure. It's like if you're traveling, you know what your destination is. Just gotta get there. This is great. I'm gonna be telling all of my fellow romance readers that this is a great.
Oh,
Thank you for that to try to jump into the genre.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, like Grace kissing in the book. Which
Yes,
I always
there's-
appreciated. I was like, yeah, so all the things that I love in books. So I'm very excited for you to all get the chance finally to read it. And the finished copy is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, you should, even if you don't buy it, you should definitely just look at them. Tor.com did an awesome job with it. There's this kind of consistency to the cover. Isn't it beautiful?
The
Right?
shimmery, like cheese.
Yes.
It's like a piece of gold. It's just so good.
The cigarettes.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
The dramatic, can't wait for people do some book looks. All right, so what books are on your nightstand at home right now?
Let's see, what have I got there? I am working my way through Shooting in the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I'm very excited by that. I am rereading Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Claw because it's just creepy stuff. And it's fantastic. Let's see. I think I'm working my way through one of Ursula Vernon or / T. Kingfisher's Paladin's Strength, I think is that one,
yeah.
which is like, that's like my catnip for kind of light romance stuff. If you can love serial killers with it, I love everything she does. Yeah, so there's that. And also, I think I've got, oh, this is a weird one I got. So there's this book that actually, it's called The Ruby Slippers, I think. And it tells you where random artifacts from Americana history are located, like who owns what dresses for Marilyn Monroe, and where are the ruby slippers, and where's the Bonnie and Clyde death car, and I'm like, there's a whole industry here, and I need to do something about it. Someone does, because it's creepy. Well, you can own history. Go ahead, do that.
After the latest Met Gala,
Right, the dress.
Literally,
Yeah.
the dress.
Well, that's a thing that happened.
Yeah, like, wow, we didn't do that. Something else we had talked about a little bit before we started was the audio for this.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about like, the process, like what Dan would do now and who the narrator is. For people to listen.
Okay, so you guys are gonna think this. Natalie Naudus is the narrator for both The Siren Queen and for The Chosen and Beautiful, and she's like a rock star. She is amazing. And first she has just one of those really cool voices that just pulls you into a story. I can basically tell like a dirty joke, and that's about kind of where I talk out, but she can make you like feel things, and it's the best gift. And she's just, she's just super kind, and she's talked with me, and there's this process where, they ask you, so we're just saying a list of things and how you pronounce it. And I'm like, I'm a writer. I feel like that's not my job. It is. Don't, you can't say that to them. I didn't really have much choice on who they picked, but that's also not a concern, because it's not like it was ever something that I ever thought about. Like, it's like, wow, someone's gonna have to put their mouth on these words, huh? And part of it is, it was work I absolutely respected, and work that I knew that, I couldn't really do and that I had no expertise on. But it didn't really sink in for me for real until I started doing readings for The Chosen and the Beautiful. And basically about 2 paragraphs in, I realized, oh, I have written these words to never be pronounced by a human mouth. And because they're long sentences and they're complicated sentences, and then the words feel really weird. It's like this one time, my friend Shane, he's a musician, right? And he's like, well, I'm just trying to write these lyrics. I'm like, oh, I do words, I can help. And so like I wrote some lyrics, and he's like, human mouths don't do this thing you think they do, especially not when they're singing. And I'm like, okay, all right. So Natalie is awesome. And there's on my Twitter, if you guys go to my Twitter, they let me put up a sample from the first part of the audiobook. So people should definitely listen to that. She's just a knockout. She's great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan right now. That's how my house gets clean.
It's like, because I need more stimulation.
Otherwise, it's too fun enough for me. Okay, so I really hate asking people their like favorite movies, and I can't answer that question. So instead, we'll wrap up with a fun game that's easy. Don't worry, just playing around it. And
Okay.
You all
Do my
have
best.
questions, okay?
Okay.
So let's look about like a fling game. For good or bad.
Fling for good or bad reasons? Both. On one hand, sometimes I get, oh, I see what you mean. Yes, last book that I held about flinging. Probably it was one of Ursula Vermon's romances, because she does a slow burn like no one else I can imagine. I'm like if you can get to a certain place where all they're talking about is serial killers, and I love serial killer stuff, and I just really want them to kiss, she's done something right. So yeah. She's like, you can kiss, or I can just throw this into the garbage.
I know exactly what you're talking
Right,
about.
right.
Okay, most memorable reading experience.
Okay, so I'm 17 years old. I'm trying to read War and Peace because I think that I'm cool enough to read like enormous Russian novels, and I did not have the background for that. I'm on the bus, and this old man with an Eastern European accent starts telling me why it's shit. And I'm like, I'm never gonna forget this. I'll never be able to forget this. Okay, he had some real feelings about that book, so probably that one. It's like public transport. It's the best way to get everyone's opinion. Just like,
yep. You're good. You can't stop me until you get off the vehicle.
so I guess I got another 15 months of this, I see.
Yeah, and then okay, what section or part of the bookstore library do you head to browse first?
Graphic novels, because I kind of want to see how much Hellblazer you guys have got lying around.
Fantastic. Okay, favorite hardcover?
Hardcover, because I do like to be able to defend myself from robbers, but softcover if I'm traveling.
Okay, for audio, do you like the full cast, so like each character has its own narrator, dual narrators, or a single narrator?
I would really like to like full cast more than I do, but I get so out like audibly confused. I'm like, okay, it's too easy for me to zone out. It's a single narrator that I can just focus on usually.
Bookmark, yes or no?
Absolutely bookmark, and my bookmark Hall of Shame is probably the one time I was in a hurry and had to use like a wrapped craft single slice as a bookmark. And I am not proud of that. Oh my god, in a library book.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Sadness. That is just sadness.
Yeah. One of my tasks here is I have a shelf where they can be damaged items, and I go through them to see if we can order a new one, or can I fix it? It's just like, sometimes it's just like, wow, I don't know what book, but it's a journey.
Yeah, I used to work at the undergrad library at the U of I, so it's like that's a fun game. It's like, what did they leave for me today?
And like, oh, is it a plastic bag?
It's dripping. Why is it dripping?
Most of you are very respectful.
Yes.
And appreciate all of you. We also, I felt so bad, but we had a person who would come in and was marking the tops of the books that they had read. And I was like,
We have it's just look at your card. Just look at your card.
it's like, I don't know, do that. And it's, okay, so like romance readers, you will look in and they're like, they have their little mark because they forget which ones they read. And it's like, okay, be subtle about it. And like, it was like a blue journal. It was like a blue marker. It was tops, like, of all our history. And I was like,
Oh man.
and we found out who it was. And I was like, you are being sorry. So speaking of that, do you write in your books?
Okay, so no, because I'm a little too nervous about it, and honestly, I like to keep notes. Like I have a commonplace book basically where all of the random stuff that goes through my head or like from books goes in, because you never know what's going to turn into like a novel or really ill-advised Twitter rant, right? So usually I don't write in books, but I've had this new experience of doing so for my gig at the Braille Library actually, because they want to make sure that the breath marks come in the right place. And so I'm writing like these little notes to myself for how to pronounce Polish, and turns out I can't really pronounce Polish, so that was a good choice on my part to pick the book that I did. But so it's like I'm just like writing as fast as I can. I'm like, this is terrible. I feel bad. I'm bad. I should feel bad.
No, it's okay. Tell everyone what you're doing for our library.
Oh, right. So my current volunteer gig for a library is after kind of a very short training period. I read books that don't have audiobooks for the exclusive use of the Braille Library. So members of the blind community can request like older books. We do a lot of older books that don't have audiobooks. So I just spend like, a couple hours every week reading those books into it with an extremely patient sound engineer named Dylan. He's really nice because every now and then I can hear him say in my ear, it's like, why don't you try that again? Because Natalie is the person who's trained to do this. I'm just like someone who didn't swear on my audition tape, I think. So I think that got me in.
Very good. Might be something you would all like to investigate.
Yeah, it's a really cool gig actually. I liked it a lot.
House, you just go to Central Library.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, and I get to like go into like the guts of the library, which is like, I'm like, cool, something probably died down here.
Probably right. Yeah, Central Library is.
It's huge and beautiful and it's weird.
When I started here, they trained you at Central for a few weeks before they send you your assignment, and I was taken around the building by many people, and I think we're starting to open up tours again, so just check that out if you want. Green roof, we did like a haunted third floor, the museum used to be on the third floor, like offices, there used to be a lion that lived on the roof. It's a cool building.
Yeah,
So
no,
check it
it's,
out.
yeah, I think I've been at this for like 3 months now, and I just finally stopped getting lost trying to leave.
Yeah, I'm not there enough to know, like, I don't ride the elevators there, they scare me and I got stuff.
Oh, yeah, like there's like this one big fan that I used to turn, and I'm like, please don't ever move that fan, I will die in here.
Never seen it again.
I mean, that's pretty good for a writer, right?
Yeah.
It's disappeared in the stacks and everything again.
All right, and then the next one,
Right.
the books, old books smell or new books smell?
I like both. It's all just like it's ancient wood, and I'm like, this is cool. This is a happy place. So
Yeah, I feel like Central smells like a library that I know, and here is more new, so it's like different worlds when I go.
it really is. Yeah,
So, I think that's a whole.
it is.
All Okay, does anyone have any questions for our special guest?
Yeah, you have to come up with anything. I will just tell you about tiger salamanders. That's been my Okay, so tiger salamanders are. We really you're all gonna think this, right? Because tiger salamanders are the only animals we know on Earth who develop cannibalism as babies. Most of the time, they're not cannibals. They eat lichen. They're they grow. They're like this big. They're super cute. But here's the thing: where if they're in their larval pools, and if they get touched too much, a certain like too many siblings bumping into you, a percentage of them undergo actual physiological changes. Their heads get bigger, their mouths get wider, their teeth get bigger, and they start eating each other, basically. They actually develop physiological changes to become cannibals. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening there, but I want it. Not to be a person. But sorry, that's
No,
everyone needs to know that, right?
One of my colleagues here raises these really strange looking frogs that one thing boa and one thing oolong.
Are they like Pac-Man frogs? Kind of big and chubby?
They're kind of big, chubby, they're long balls, and they're kind of translucency, and they look real dirty.
No, the tiger salamanders are fantastic and terrifying. Like, can you imagine, you look over and your 5-year-old's like, looking a little sharp there. Maybe we'll give you some space. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's like all I have when people don't have questions.
What do you want the tiger salamander research hole?
Oh yeah, so I started looking into cannibalism, and I feel like there should be a better start for that, but there wasn't. I was just like, cool, I am now really mad at the grocery store, and I kind of want to know what my options are. so then they're getting into cultural cannibalism and desperation cannibalism, and there's no cannibalism. There's no cannibalism in Cyber Queen?
No.
Things people do get eaten, but it's not cannibalism.
No.
Maybe the next.
Cool. Congratulations. That's not my age problem. So me, I watched your performance and no, she's really so cool because she's like, because every now, so this, ideas are cheap, right? So Diana and I talk really late at night, we've blasted through the professional boundaries of this relationship months ago. And so, I'm like, well, I can write a book about this, or I can write a book about this. And then 4 months later, she's like, do you really want to write that book? I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, but you're going to, right? I'm like, I can do that. And that's what our professional is like. Life is like that.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Do you tell everyone what to expect for you, or do you have an event coming up with
Rebecca Roadhorse, which is going to be very cool. If you go to my website and if you check my Twitter, basically I just repost what tour.com sends me because they actually know my schedule better than I do. Basically, so I have this Google Calendar and every day I look at it and go, what's going on today? And that's the only way I keep track of things. But I've got a conversation with Rebecca Roadhorse, which I'm very excited by, another one with Chloe Gong, I believe, which is coming up with Edison Books, maybe tomorrow. So yeah, so this whole thing about book tours for promoting books it's really weird, and I'm not used to it. But that's what my month is going to be like. I'm going to be talking on screen a lot, so it's gonna be a lot of that.
Catch you again lots of times.
Yes. Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'll sign whatever you put in front of me.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I'm going to turn that off before you all come up for signing.
Sounds great.
So very cool. Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Let's turn this off.